Thank you. Good morning. As mentioned already, my name is Brian van Baekel, working as a Zabbix trainer, consultant, and well, working for a Zabbix partner in the Netherlands, United Kingdom, United States, which means that we are kind of often building Zabbix environments. Actually, it's the only thing that we do. I mean, you've seen this one from Zabbix. We do exactly the same thing. And doing this means that we build it for normal customers, but also for MSPs. What we typically see is that an MSP got really different requirements, different challenges, different considerations. So let's go over those. Let's see what we have to think about when building something for an MSP. I think Sergey mentioned already, an MSP is not only monitoring its own environment, but mainly customer environments. So they have different challenges and different ways of setting up a Zabbix server. A typical setup, as we see it, is this, where you have one Zabbix server, just a global Zabbix server with probably many proxies linked to it. And each proxy is responsible for monitoring a specific customer or multiple proxies per customer, depending on how big the customer is. On this slide, it's a really simple representation of what we typically see. We are not talking about HA yet. This is just a simple drawing. So this is the typical setup. However, there is another option. This one. Many small instances. Technically, it is possible. Technically, we can just spin up a new Zabbix server per customer. Might be working perfectly fine, might be extremely dramatic at some point. So, what's the difference? Well, if you have one instance, it's a lot easier to manage. I mean, you've got to think about one Linux operating system, probably just one database or one database type, etc. At the same time, if you're using, I don't know, Red Hat, you probably pay something for the licenses, unfortunately. With just one Zabbix server or one Zabbix instance, you just pay for that single instance. If you have for each customer a separated Zabbix server, then you probably got to pay, a lot more for the licenses. Same thing with the databases, etc. For the upgrade, it's the same thing. With one instance, you just upgrade one Zabbix server to a new version, and although the impact is high or higher, it's just one action to perform. With many instances, probably each instance is smaller. So it's a lot easier to tune the performance. Probably it's a lot easier to do those upgrades, but yeah, it's going to be a repeating task for all those different environments. Another thing, and this one is really important, with one single server, you get that single pane of glass. And it was mentioned a few times already. Zabbix is really working on new widgets, new visualization, new options to make it even better. With many small servers, good luck. You need some custom coding. Probably you need some Grafana, some other stuff to get that single pane of glass and get your overview. Zabbix is working on it. It's on the roadmap. Let's see when it will be implemented and how useful it will be straight from the implementation. Okay, so let's just focus on one instance, because that's what we typically see. One big instance, many proxies tied to it. We get another benefit, uniform monitoring, uniform configuration, and uniform alerting. Since you are playing around in one Zabbix instance, it is really just reusing your templates instead of synchronizing it. It is really just creating new hosts. Or even better, for the alerting part, you create once a nice structure, and you can somewhat copy-paste that structure for all new customers. And that's one of the most important things, I think. Be structured, be uniformal, but also think about way too many things before you actually start implementing it. Another benefit, if you have one Zabbix server, you need a proxy per customer. And that means that the only thing that you have to set up, the only thing that you have to configure to onboard a new customer is a new proxy. And that happens to be extremely straightforward. So give me a Linux machine, I go to the Zabbix website, spin up that proxy, it's taking like 10, 15 minutes, including a coffee break. I go back to the Zabbix front end, add that proxy, add new host, bam, monitoring works. That's honestly all that it takes. Okay, are there any other benefits? Sure thing. Of course there are more benefits. How about automation? Typically with an MSP, we see that there is a small margin per host, per device. So everything needs to be as efficient as possible. Doing things manually, not too efficient. So how about linking it to a CMDB? Quite often, Netbox, ServiceNow, products like that. How about your ticketing system? How about the authentication stuff? All these things can be easily automated with just one Zabbix server. Even better, how about building everything via API? I mean, it really makes no sense to things manually again and again and again. Script it away, automate it. Okay, so far, so good. Let's talk about the bad things. Let's talk about the drawbacks, because there are always drawbacks. And yes, we know we've got Zabbix support, we've got partners to help you out if something happens, but let's try to prevent it. How about this one? And it happens a lot, actually. Your Zabbix server goes down, and then suddenly you're blindfolded. Because, yeah, too bad, connection refused. And it might be an easy fix, but with one instance, if you don't think about high availability, yeah, you might have some sort of issue. Another one, and this is for us always a big challenge, scaling it. So we have some examples. I mean, lack of available memory, utilization of the ICMP pinger process, some other stuff there. But that's just the beginning of how bad it can be. I mean, the screenshot at the bottom, and I think it's hard to see, is of one of our customers where the instance is growing and growing and growing. And then we get, well, graphs like this, where you really have to think about how can we improve the I/O weight. And it will become worse if we don't take action at some point. So far, it's working perfectly fine, but we need to take action and try to understand how much it will grow. So, how many hosts, how many items, what's going to be the update interval, how long do we keep the historical data or the trend data? And the worst one, take account for expansion. I mean, that's problematic. I can always just count the hosts, estimate the items, but what will be the growth in the upcoming 2, 3, 4 years? So that's an interesting one. Okay, so we have quite a few things to think about already. Scaling, probably high availability, automation, etc. So we start, and then at some point we realize that we've got a few things. It can be fixed. Of course, it can be fixed, but it might be time-consuming. So let's start thinking about these things before the implementation takes place. And there are a few things. Naming, as a first one, naming. So we create a new Windows host, give it some sort of stupid name. And I'm not ranting about Windows, don't get me wrong. We give it some sort of stupid name, new customer comes with a Windows machine, we try to give it the same stupid name, and Zabbix is more than happy to tell you, nope, that's not allowed. Hosts with the same name already exist. So we call it my awesome Windows host 1 and 2 and 3, and well, there you go. So, names, really important. Same thing for the host groups, actually. Host groups used for logical grouping, but also for the permissions. And trust me, it's going to be great fun if you place every host in just one group. Technically, it's going to be perfectly fine. But for the rest, it's going to be a nightmare. So what we typically do, we create host groups with a customer name, what we are monitoring, and optionally where that thing is located, an office location, a country, a city, or whatever. For all these things, so for the host names, for the host groups, most important part, be structured. So just an example here that we see, well, a bit. And I'm not telling that this is the best solution. It's just to give you an idea how to structure things. So a 4-digit customer name, then a 1-character type, 3-character location code, the environment, the row, and then an incrementing number. And again, this is just an example. It can be anything, as long as it is structured, and you follow that structure always, then it can be anything. And no, my awesome Windows host 1 is not really structured. For the templates, we do the same thing. We just make sure that we have a what and a how. And well, these are just the normal Zabbix templates already. So we are monitoring IIS or Linux or Windows or whatever via SNMP, via Zabbix agent, via IPMI, or however you are monitoring that thing. Okay. We have another one. Quite often forgotten, to be honest, the actions. So if you have just one customer, one environment, don't care. It really does not make any sense to put a lot of effort in making a structured action name. But if you have many different customers, many different environments, you really would like to be able to filter per customer and see what's going on there. There we go. So who, the customer name, what we are reporting on, and how we are reporting on it. I don't want to go into all actions one by one to see what's going on there. I really would like to see it immediately just from that overview. Same thing for the dashboards. And actually, look at the example. So Brian's dashboard, some databases, a global view, Linux servers, MS SQL dashboard. Great, sure. If this was the whole list and it will not expand, it will be fine. But what if it keeps on expanding with new customers and new types, and at some point you will have a hard time finding the correct dashboard. Structure these things. So application databases, personal, servers, everything regarding Zabbix, networking, customer name, whatever you would like to use there. Be structured, that's the whole thing. And it just continues and continues, but this one needs a bit of special attention. Within Zabbix, you can just create a super admin, and that super admin can see everything. Perfectly fine. And if it's your own internal network, your own internal infrastructure, should be not too problematic. However, we are talking about MSPs. We are talking about different customers. And probably you do not want to expose the data of customer 1 to customer 2 and 3. So you need to think about permissions. Within Zabbix, we've got 3 different user types. We've got a super admin, which is, in my opinion, still equal to root. We've got admin, and we've got the user type. As an admin, you will end up with the permissions as configured in the user groups. As a user type, you will always have read-only access. So user is by far the most safe option here. Can we make it better? Yes, actually we can, or we must. So we have those user roles in place. And with those user roles, we still specify the user type and which options in the front end can be seen. But also, kinda important, this one. Access to the services. So if you have a customer and that customer is using the services option within Zabbix, the only way to nicely limit the access is done in the user roles. So just create a role per customer, per user type, and there we go. For the dashboards, it's just the same thing once again. You create hopefully a dashboard or multiple dashboards per customer, and then who can see what? Well, customer 1 does have some ugly looking dashboard with a map, some item value, perfectly fine. What if you are including data of customer 2? He will be able to see, customer 1 that is, will be able to see the dashboard, but will get that nice error message that there is no permissions to see whatever is presented there. So within the dashboards, permissions are fully respected, and that's one of the other reasons that you definitely not would like to have a customer with super admin type, because super admin can see everything. For the actions, the same thing actually. So this is a screenshot logged in as a super admin, where you can see all actions, you can see all customers, all options, etc. And then we give customer access to our Zabbix. There we go. Customer 1, user type is admin, and this type, this user got read-write access on customer 1 host group. He will see only his own actions, only that is regarding customer 1 stuff because of this one. Host group equals customer 1. And although we have multiple actions, they are not presented to that customer, just how it should be. Same thing for the maintenance basically. As a super admin, you can see all maintenance periods. As once again, customer 1, admin type, read-write access to that group. He will be able to see and create only maintenance for his own host. And then the question, of course, is should he be able to make maintenance to start with? But that's a different discussion, I think. So, wrapping up the permission stuff, yes, we can use Zabbix in an MSP environment, permission-wise that is. No, never, ever, ever provide super admin rights to a customer. Or if you like living on the edge, go for it, but don't call us. You create them as a user. Only in specific cases you upgrade them to the type admin. And for the rest, that's it. Okay. For HA, equally important, I think. We have one Zabbix server. The thing goes down, you're blindfolded. Good luck. Try to explain that to your customer. That's not going to work out. So, first step, proxies. What happens if your Zabbix server goes down without a proxy? Most likely your data is gone. There are a few edge cases with Agent 2 that you can preserve a bit of data, but you will be presented with a nice gap. If you have proxies in place, these things will buffer the data for, by default, 1 hour, and there we go. It starts synchronizing once the Zabbix server is back online. So proxies. Okay, then, and I'm not going to discuss in depth how we are building all HA environments, but this is just a single Zabbix server hosting all 3 different services. So the front end, server daemon, the database. Single point of failure. I mean, machine goes down, Zabbix is gone. How about building something like this? So we have 4 Linux machines where one machine responsible for the front-end Zabbix server, another one, again, front-end Zabbix server, and 2 databases. And if you're happy to discuss that you should have 2 or 3 databases in a cluster, find me later on, we can discuss it. But quite often we are building 2 node clusters. We make sure that the databases are synchronized. We make sure that we use the native HA function within Zabbix. And we've got a, well, somewhat high available setup. We might need some load balancers in front of it, etc., but it should be fine. Upgrades is another story. And actually this one is somewhat problematic, and it was mentioned yesterday by Alexei already. It is solved in the current versions. If you have a Zabbix instance before Zabbix 6.4, you need to upgrade your Zabbix server daemon and the proxy at the same time. And there are a few edge cases where you can, well, work around it for a limited amount of time, but at some point your monitoring stops. So you need to fix, well, somehow that you have your Zabbix server and proxies upgraded at the same time. Starting from 6.4, we can have that mismatch in a major version. So we can upgrade our Zabbix server, and then we have time to upgrade our proxies. And that's mainly because the proxies keep on sending the data, can execute remote commands, and well, that's giving us a time frame to upgrade. Okay, wrapping up. Zabbix in an MSP environment? Yes. Always, yes. But you need to take a few things in considerations before you start, or willing to make many configuration changes afterwards to fix everything. But Zabbix in an MSP environment, yes, definitely. As I mentioned, you can always reach out to us for any questions. Find us here on LinkedIn, webinars, trainings, whatever, more than happy to discuss. Also, on LinkedIn, we are extremely active, so just follow our page and you will see, well, really fast all new Zabbix updates, features, etc. That's it from my side.